Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari, TGIF. Today it's all in the news. I don't think it's ever happened before that a former president, a president's wife, or a former president's wife has found herself in the position of having to defend grievous financial allegations, indeed money laundering allegations. The EFCC at the moment, as you know, is tackling Madam Patience Jonathan, wife of the former president. Indeed, and have accused her, the EFCC has accused her and companies of conspiring to launder money. And this goes back to 2013, September, in November 2013, according to the EFCC. Madam Patience Jonathan, the charge goes, actually was involved in laundering of money. But Madam Jonathan has fired back and has indeed sued the EFCC for 200 million naira, not just the EFCC and Skybank, for 200 million naira. And if you look at all the headlines, you don't really know what to think. One headline in front of me here says, EFCC wants to steal my money, quoting Madam Patience Jonathan. But other headlines, as you know, EFCC wants Patience Jonathan to forfeit $15 million. We're talking dollars here. And indeed, one other headline interesting here. This is a clear evidence of the desperation of the prosecution to pull down the former First Lady and confiscate her hard-earned money. So that's the scenario. As we say, Madam Patience Jonathan is not admitting anything. 3 companies that were accused of helping launder this money have pleaded guilty to the charge. But then Madam Patience Jonathan has fired back that these are mercenaries that were hired to go admit the charge in court. We'll see. Really, the matter is in court. As to the facts of the matter, we'll have to wait for all of those to come out as we go along. But we'll still talk about the situation that Nigeria has never been regaled with a situation like this before. One of my guests this morning is Barrister Adetokunbo Momoni. Tokunbo is Executive Director, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
It is my pleasure being here.
We will be joined very, very shortly by the President of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Barrister Malaki Ogumadu, shortly. But Tokunbo, as you know, you're a man of the law. One has to be careful with these matters. They're in court. A charge has been laid. The accused, principal accused, has said that this is clear mercenaries at work. It is my hard-earned money. How say you on this whole matter?
I like to appreciate that I'm here again. Let me just say that in matters that relates to criminal law, that's the presumption created by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has been so also at common law that an accusatorial system of criminal justice, the accused is presumed innocent until the contrary is established. And that contrary will be established by or in the presence or at the forum known as the court. So let's give Madam Patience the benefit of the doubt allowed by the Constitution. And this discussion,
especially as she
has
not guilty.
No, she's
well on her behalf.
Yes,
on her behalf.
Yes, she has said these are my hard-earned money.
And that those parties that did plead guilty were hired mercenaries.
No, whether you see, there's an advantage in favor of Mrs. Jonathan. The prosecution has to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay.
Any iota of doubt goes in favor of the accused. That is the principle upon which we operate our criminal jurisprudence here. So let me just talk about this idea that the matter is in court and that nobody should comment on it. No. This forum is not trying to say the prosecution is correct. This forum is not to say Madam Jonathan is guilty. This is about a matter of public importance. You see, one headline says Madam Patience has sued the EFCC and has sued the Sky Bank. Now, you see, what will be the basis of the suit, the civil suit? Let me ask. Is it that the EFCC is not acting according to law? Is it that the EFCC has violated Madam Patience Jonathan's fundamental human rights? Is it that the Sky Bank, the bank that is involved now in this matter, has Sky Bank done what is not proper according to law, establishing Sky Bank? Remember, Sky Bank obtained a banking license from the CBN of Nigeria under the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Decree 1991 as amended. Now, what is the obligation of Sky Bank under the law? The obligation of Sky Bank is to do its banking transaction according to the laid down rules, whether as contained in BOFIT, the one that I call Bank and Other Financial Institutions Decree 1991 as amended, or based on the directives and principles issued by the CBN from time to time as to how the financial system should operate. Let me tell you, no bank is entitled to obtain a license, which is a benefit, and jettison the burden. You see, when you have a license, that is the benefit. The burden is that you have to continue to operate within the confines of the law.
In other words, there are responsibilities.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So, part of the duty which this Sky Bank has under the law, under Bank and Other Financial Institutions Decree and every other subsequent rules or regulations issued by the CBN, is to comply with what will the Sky Bank be accused of now? The Sky Bank will be entitled to release information, even confidential information of its customers, because that's what the law says. There are certain grounds under which you are bound by law to give out information relating to your customers, especially if it involves anything illegal, if the account is being used for anything that's contrary to public policy. A lot of about 6 are stated in the provision of the
So it looks set up to be something of an interesting case.
Yes.
Especially when the details of it begin to come out.
Exactly.
One moment, please. We'll take a very short break. As I said at the beginning, Barrister Malaki Ugumadu will be joining us, and indeed he is here. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. And Barrister Malaki Ugumadu, I beg your pardon, National President, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, is here. Thank you very much for coming.
I apologize for my late
Indeed.
entry.
It's good to have you. We started the conversation. You heard most of what we started with because you've been in place. I think you'll will say in situ. No, I'm sorry. I just couldn't resist that. But, you know, this whole matter about the former, it's something of a spectacle, depending on who is looking. It's something of a spectacle of a former First Lady in a position of having to defend herself on the improbable sums of $15 million, for example. Well, the First Lady, as you know, has said not guilty. Not only that, she has said that those parties that were pleading guilty to money laundering were clear mercenaries. But for whatever it is worth, let me just read something here from one of the numerous reports out there. Mrs. Jonathan has explained that the accounts were opened to facilitate. This is, by the way, she's admitted that she is the owner and signatory of all those accounts. That much has been admitted. But she continues, she has explained that the accounts were opened to facilitate her travel overseas, particularly for medical treatment, sundry purchases for herself and her late mother, Mrs. Charity Oba, a.k.a. Mama Sisi. So it's, and she, apart from having pled not guilty on her behalf, it has also come out that she has sued First Bank and, I beg your pardon, not First Bank at all, Sky Bank and EFCC to the tune of $200 million for all this inconvenience and, painting her black.
Grant me the indulgence to clear a few grounds.
Sure.
One, the matter, as I understand it, is presently in the court. So we're going to, as lawyers, be circumspect in dealing with the merits of the matter. That does not erode our right to also comment
as has
freely.
been stated by your brother lawyer.
Secondly, Mrs. Jonathan was never a state actor. She was the wife of the substantive president of Nigeria and commander-in-chief up until 2015. Thirdly is that if you proceed on a defamation action, there is what we call justification, which operates as a total defense to defamation. Indeed, what some of us do very creatively with somebody we were sure before the alleged defamatory statement is to take advantage of that action to now unearth.
The defense of justification.
Yes.
It's a good defense
It's
for the charge of defamation.
It's a total. In other words, if I allege that Mr. A is a thief, and perhaps Mr. A is a lawyer on the frolic of his own, in that desperation to show that he will always have his way, decides to take an action in defamation, that action will grant me perhaps representing whoever may have allegedly defamed him to say much more than the one he's even complaining about. That happened with Salisu Buhari. You remember? The face of a liar.
The face of a liar, yes.
In that particular case, Salisu Buhari ran to late Chief Williams, insisting that he has been defamed.
This was Salisu Buhari was
the first Speaker
of the House of
the
Representatives.
same man that I resisted during his appointment, subsequent appointment into the Governing Council of University of Nigeria. Because my argument, sorry for this distraction, was that if my institution had the motto to restore the dignity of man, you cannot be qualified to be in the Governing Council of the same institution when you have issues of integrity and so on and so forth. So, the news ran to Mr. Falana. I was with Mr. Femi Falana, SAN. And he was so glad that they came because it was a threat. Retract, apologize, and so on and so forth. He said, Malaki, let it not be more than 3 lines in response.
The defense.
And that is to dare them to go to court, failure of which the next edition of that publication will be out. Well, I have offered a very free advice to Madam Patience. But let's take it head on. I think that as a nation, we have come to a very critical crossroads. One in which we must all rise in unison against a menace that has the capacity of eroding our humanity and compromising, if not jeopardizing, the future of our children, not ours any longer. Indeed, Professor Shoyinka talks of his own wasted generation. I think mine is already compromised. And so, the next point, which I think is germane in the mix of what has been happening for the last 2 days, is to say, look, I think the narrative is now gradually changing. Namely to say, if the EFCC, that has been lampooned thoroughly for doing not very thorough investigation, can now confront you, men and women of power in yesteryears, with the body of evidence that you have, and the next thing we hear, at least from the grapevine, is that companies after companies associated with this woman have all pleaded guilty.
Yes.
That for me is instructive. We are in the business of mobilizing the best of lawyers, particularly when you have the capacity to fund it. And preliminary objections after preliminary objections, appeals after appeals, in most cases, have truncated straightforward criminal trials. Today, I am delighted. And I think that rather than castigate the lawyers, those lawyers who probably offered this quality of advice in the circumstance that is reminiscent of what James C. Boris suffered in Great Britain. I hope you are aware, by the way, that his effort to turn the course of justice was also
his conviction will stand.
As a Delta, somebody from Delta State, we are very satisfied with that. We are happy because we indeed are hoping for days when we can take our children, grandchildren, and say, here was your former governor who conducted himself in ways that are completely different from what a state actor like him should be. So, going back to
yes. Okay. Let me. Thank you very much for that opening. Let me go back to Tokunbo. Malaki spoke about advice, and that's what lawyers do. Yes. When you bring a case, you advise the maybe potential client at the time, maybe actually substantive client. You give them advice. And as laymen all, I know lawyers are going to have the different fora where they will talk about these matters, but as laymen all, there are more laymen than there are lawyers. You begin to look at the facts of the case as have been put across. We're talking about, never mind that there was some disagreement about what the actual figure was in millions of dollars, but we're talking about millions of dollars. Now, the people that are advising, that is the part, the professionals that are advising Madam Jonathan's camp. I don't know how it is they come up with that advice, and what impact do you think this has? After all, nobody really knew Madam Jonathan. It was President Jonathan that brought us to know Madam Jonathan, and everything that Madam Jonathan is doing now surely impacts, perhaps not too positively, on His Excellency the former President of Nigeria. There is that aspect to this unfortunate case. The lawyers will take care of all the rest, and as you both have said, there are details that we don't want to go too deep into. But in terms of the commentary, the former president he's a statesman, at least he's billed as a statesman, he's going around the world. Now this, how do you think this is going to impact on him?
Let me just say straight away that whether you are the wife of a former president or the wife of an incumbent president does not shield you either from criminal investigation or criminal prosecution. Without saying clearly or making a categorical statement as to the guilt or the wife of any person, I believe that what should have been happening now, especially the public opinion angle to it, should have been when matters like this get to the notice of the former president. What we should have been hearing is what should be trying to do damage control so that the publicity, the negative publicity aspect on the former president will not be too much. But let me say this.
Because sorry, I'm just looking at this as an ordinary guy. Before all of this hit the headlines, not saying the former president could have stopped anything, but before all of this hit the headlines, surely defenses such as EFCC wants to steal my money. I'm saying that a husband might be aware that his wife might say certain things, and perhaps I'm just blown away by there's a couple here, a Mr. and Mrs.
Yes.
So if my Mrs. is saying this kind of stuff,
but let me remind you that I'm so sorry to say, Mrs. President Jonathan is used to speaking off the cuff, speaking uncontrollably. That's what I want to say. But let me say this. You say lawyers will give advice Now, I don't think lawyers are magicians. Lawyers are supposed to advise their clients based on the weight of evidence available when their clients are confronted with certain allegations.
So one set of lawyers have asked the company to go ahead and plead guilty because of the weight of the evidence,
exactly.
and they accepted that advice.
Yes.
And apparently another set of lawyers have said, don't agree.
You see, remember that in the Boris case, is it 200 count charge or something?
Yes.
Yes.
The weight of evidence is not too different from what they had in London. You see, the attorney there, I think there was a suggestion by Ibori that the man should filibuster, try to waste the time of the court. But the man said, no, we don't do our legal practice that way here.
In the UK.
That you can't take Her Majesty, the Queen, on a frolic. At the end of the day, you know that you eventually
filibuster is to go on and
like that.
Interminably. Don't stop talking
and that
for as long as it takes.
And that was the immediate advice that counsel gave to Ibori. You better plead guilty. That will be better for you. And he had to plead guilty on the same weight of evidence that some people advised him.
Charged and acquitted.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the judge even said no prosecution ever should take place. So what I'm saying is that the problem that I see with the practice of law in Nigeria is that the disciplinary arm of the Nigerian Bar Association, let me say, if it exists at all now, is essentially comatose. And what the bar should be doing in terms of discipline to members of the bar who conduct themselves in, let me say, in quote, in an unprofessional way, in the discharge of their professional duties. It's not happening the way it should happen.
Because of what your learned brother has just said, there's a sense in which Nigeria, it happened in the Bori case, we actually might down the road have a situation of discharged on all counts and acquitted.
Well, let me remind you that between the time of Ibori's case and now, there have been some, if you like, legislative as well as jurisprudential revolutions. And that was that can be located within the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. So much so that cases that commenced after the law came into effect are moving by far faster in relation to those that were instituted much earlier before the act. Under this act, you're likely not going to get away with most of the strategies that were available to most defense lawyers in the past.
Okay.
And that, for me, will help in changing the narrative.
Okay, so this
however,
sorry, let me go on a quick break, and when I come back, I'll resume with you because I caught you mid-thought. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We still have the two barristers in the house. Adetokunbo Mumuni, Executive Director, Socioeconomic and Rights and Accountability Project, and Malaki Ugumadu, National President, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Talking about Madam Patience Jonathan, wife of the former president. She's now defending herself in, an improbable $15 million, money laundering charge. I caught you mid-flight.
The question was, to what extent do I still retain the fear?
Yes.
Concern.
Yes.
That this could go the way of the Ibori case.
Yes.
That was the summary of the question. And then I entered a caveat, first with the legislations that are now in place, but secondly, let's even interrogate what has happened without going into the merits.
But briefly, please.
Yes. Charges have been preferred, indicating that thorough investigations preceded that. Advice have been given, namely, go plead guilty. Those plea of guilt are already on record. In criminal trials, the next thing is to review the facts of the matter. And then sentencing,
Those that have pleaded guilty.
Now, the narrative has also changed from EFCC is hired to steal my money. No, EFCC is out to steal my money.
Hard-earned money.
But don't forget, she was indeed a permanent secretary in one of the states.
But no state in the country pays in dollars.
Well, I needed to be charitable to her, just so that it doesn't turn out to be all out. Secondly, there is also another angle to it. After the allegation that the EFCC is out to steal his hard-earned money, the second allegation is that, well, yes, I owned these companies, but I am not. I did not, or rather, the monies used were those meant for the specific hospital bills for herself and the late mom, and so on and so forth.
Expenses.
Those are already defenses. It has also come to the point where the allegations are not totally denied. In law, there is what we call categorical denial. You are a thief? No, I'm not a thief.
Give explanation.
You are a thief? No, but Yori is also involved. That's not a categorical denial.
Yes.
So we are moving, and I think that Nigerians should be somewhat happy, excited, and resolved to assist in whatever way in the fight against corruption in this country. Okay. I give kudos to the Commission for going straight to men and women of power. That will trickle down.
Okay.
If I could deal with this man of power, there is no reason why
anybody else is going to. Now talking about. Let me go. Let me turn on the speculative channel now. You know, suddenly out of the blue.
We're not good at that.
Yes, but nevertheless, let me just remember former President Jonathan. It appeared suddenly visited. Which wasn't the case before. I think the president and if I remember well, even former IBB. I don't know. There are people that, first of all, do you think now we didn't know what we knew, what we now know? And then suddenly visiting with the president, coming out and speaking with the press and saying that, well, you guys don't know it, but these kind of things happen from time to time. Is it because I came in the afternoon this time, that kind of a thing? Do you see any connection?
Let me say, frankly, that I'm not good at speculating, because
yes.
Because
you are a man of the law and facts.
Yes, because I'm trained as a lawyer, and whatever I see, I have to be sure about the evidence. And let's if it is coincidental, let's say it is coincidental.
Okay, might have been a coincidence.
Yes. So I don't want to attach this to those visits, to either IBB or the Absalom, and subsequent speaking to the press of the former president.
Those visits, it might be uncharitable to link that with what is happening now. So what we have now is that I can't help thinking, you know what I mean, speaking colloquially about the poor president in all of this. When I say the poor president, I'm really thinking about the poor husband, that this is the situation that he's finding himself in. This is a man who has dignity, who is a statesman. You see all sorts of efforts to, put him where he belongs. And now this, and you have a wife, who is saying that it is my money, not just my money, my hard-earned money. And besides, EFCC wants to steal my money. And just to show you how serious I am, I'm suing EFCC and Skybank for 200 million naira. Quite frankly, there are a lot of people that would think this is a mess.
Very well. But in matters like this, every individual person will have to bear his
One
own
moment,
cross.
please. Forgive me for interrupting you. Let me take Ebenezer calling in from Port Harcourt. Good morning, Mr. Ebenezer.
Good morning, sir. Uncle Yori. Good morning.
Thank you.
You are well done. Please, I want to make a contribution about this $15 million?
Yes.
We all know what is happening in this country. My contribution is I want to go back to what Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari said earlier. That if you remember, the president said that his problem is judiciary. Yoruba parable says that Iluti Osofe Esteuspinde. We know we have law. And but to execute the law, to prosecute all these people, we have problem with our judiciary. Look at Ibori. Ibori is supposed to be prosecuted in this country. That's number one. Second, look at Saraki, look at any other languages. All of them, this thing, we are just repeating the same thing. I used to, every time, it's like repeating the same thing. When are we going to act on this issue? And another thing is that I'm a baby. I'm just close to.
Okay, but you get the import. Did you finish your thought?
No, what I was saying was that in matters like this, every individual will be allowed to bear his cross.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but you can imagine how worrisome that is. Even I agree entirely. Nobody can bear someone else's cross in these kind of circumstances.
Well,
but there's a problem.
In the eye of the law, both the man and the woman as husband and wife are one.
Well, there you go. There you go. So how could...
but let me...
If any of this has any merit, then how could the wife have been, carrying on like this if it has any merit to the total, ignorance of her husband?
I think we need to get back to our knowledge, and it's quite recent, about this wonderful couple. I criticized Jonathan all through his tenure for reasons that I understood were clear in my head. But I commended him publicly too when he did what he did at the end of the 2015 general election.
Sure.
In my humble view, I felt that the whole exercise, Nigeria indeed would have gone into flames. But for that singular action, the courage of those who provided alternative to the ruling political party, and I'm talking of the opposition, the integrity quotient of Professor Jega, who was not derailed as intended,
Yes.
particularly with the Urubebe misadventure. That alone would have represented precisely what we had with Aton Zeribe of ABN. Perhaps in a more violent manner, because as at that time, but for the maturity, the courage that was brought to bear on that particular occasion, we would have gone into flames.
Indeed.
So I have tremendous respect for
the president, the former president. But Comrade Akpan, thank you very much for allowing that. Good morning, Comrade Akpan, calling in from Ogodo.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, the two barristers in the house.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, what marvels me, I'm not a lawyer, but I listen to a lot of lawyers, even the respectable two Nigerian lawyers here on your studio. If actually Madam Patience, who actually came up to claim the ownership of this account, but what marvels me is that the driver and the other housemaid and involvement of Odudafa in the matter, but why is that account actually not carried her name? And that is where we want to know how she got the money. Because now she's fighting hard to claim the money. But we expected that with all indications on the ground, that we don't know where to go now. We want to know the truth of this matter. And we are afraid of the judiciary because it involves big man's wife now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very, very much. We'll talk about. Take a stab at his point.
I think the comment is well taken, but the only thing that I will say is that the man who called him was saying the account was not in his name. The account is in the company's name, and we always have subscribers.
No, he's saying that if it was not in her name, how come she's now fighting hard to claim, that it's my money, my legitimate money, hard-earned money?
That's why I say the comment is well taken. But to say it must be in a personal name is not.
The law can unravel those kind of shenanigans if that is what it is.
Yes.
You lift the veil.
Exactly.
You see the directors. You know precisely the personalities behind that. But I think that we should be more interested in the charge that has been preferred.
Yes.
Money laundering.
Which some have admitted to.
Money laundering is essentially an offense that speaks to the concealment of the source of an illicit transaction. That is the technical meaning of it.
Indeed.
And I have for one that I will not go into the merits, but quite frankly, if the investigation has disclosed to the effect that even the money available to these so-called companies are gotten and traced from these ABC sources, which cannot be substantiated or legitimately accounted for, then the trial will decide one way or the other.
Mazi Okoroafo, good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling.
That's Comrade Mazi Patrick Okoroafo of Arochukwu Blueberry.
Yes, he called for yesterday.
Now, my question is this to our guests in the studio. Now, we are talking about this money. Can't we approach the bank? Because this one, you don't need EFCC or ICP for on this thing. Let us approach the bank. Let the bank bring out the form. Because anytime you go to the bank to open an account, you must fill a form and attach passport. Whose passport is there? Let the media house help us and publish it on like the screen that we are after watching those two gentlemen there. Publish it, let us know. This will help us. Many yes or no yes that are not subject. Whose passport is there? Whose name? It will help us because the issue we handle about issue of money, corruption, like the man that was there yesterday said we have public corruption, we have private corruption. These are the things we are facing. Which one is this one now public corruption or private corruption? Any of their both. But the question is this, very simple. Let us approach the bank. We don't need court to court anything or to judicial anything. Very, very simple.
Okay, Comrade Mazi. Okay, interesting. But when you were saying, keeping with the facts of the case, Mrs. Jonathan has already admitted that there's one account there, $15 million. It's mine. It's my hard-earned money. It was for my health, benefit. I mean, for health runs between me and my late beloved mother. So that much has been admitted, but I think Nigerians are going to be interested in that hard-earned money part, my hard-earned money. You reminded us that she was the permanent secretary in her home state, and I also recall that no state, I don't think, pays in dollars. But I think there was instance where the federal government was reported to have been paying in dollars. Which was challenged. Yes. And
our fallen hero,
yes.
Chief Ganifa, regarding Okonjo-Iweala, and I think the former foreign affairs.
But no state government had the lever.
Well, those are issues of facts. I can easily extrapolate, determine the year you were employed, the day you became the permanent secretary, what your entitlements are, and then I compare it with what was
assuming that you didn't have private businesses,
I thought,
which would have been an offense,
I thought that Okorafo, whom I understand.
Sorry, let me quickly bring in Mr. Dede, and then I'll let you continue. He is the kind of program. Good morning, Mr. Dede.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning to the guests in the house.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
I think Mrs. Jonathan will need to answer some questions on this matter. Because if she is claiming that this money actually belongs to her, then how come none of the accounts were opened in her name? And now that she's even saying that it is machineries that the FCC are using to plead guilty, how did she know that they are machinery when she is not in the board of directors of any of these companies? Is it not for the directors to come out to tell us whether these people are not representing our company? So there is quite a lot of things that is going on here.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adede. I don't think, sorry, thank you very much. Appreciate your call. You know, we've got to keep it brief and sharp because we've gone over these points before.
Yeah.
And
valid point.
Very valid.
Valid point. Even in law, even in the same law, it is only the directors and members who can take action with respect to those companies. Exactly. So valid point, I think he's a lawyer. Exactly. Now, let me go back quickly to Okorafo. And I think I listened to him even yesterday. I remember he called. Such a man with tremendous interest in public affairs should also understand that we practice constitutional democracy presently. Indeed, when you circumscribe the problem to the judiciary, you are not being fair to the judiciary. Whoever has problem with the judiciary has problem with democracy. And I would imagine that that is
How do you mean that?
Oh, and I explain. What I mean by that is that if you have difficulties in submitting to the adjudicatory role of the judiciary in resolving civil and criminal disputes within a constitutional democracy, you certainly will have problem with the legislature who probably would want to contest some measure of power with the executive in promulgating or legislating on laws that will either support or defeat your policy. So I imagine that we need to expand the debate a little bit in appreciating that we cannot go otherwise. We cannot toe another line. We are in for constitutional democracy. When there are allegations, mark you, allegations, which presupposes that the innocence of the person against whom the allegation is levied is still presumed under the Constitution. It's a fundamental right. And therefore, those allegations can only be given effect to if it benefits from effective judicial interpretation, judicial interrogation through a well-known process of litigation. That is what is happening now. So we cannot rush to a conclusion except a competent court of law
Decides the matter.
Decides the matter in which both the accused person, both the state that has brought it, and the victim, we, the ordinary people, whose patrimony is squandered,
have all been heard.
Have all been heard.
Okay.
And that is what is happening.
Comrade Linus, good morning, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you people for this open engagement. It is helping us to even see properly what is happening in our system. On the issue, I want to thank my friend Malak and the other gentleman. I thank you very much for explaining for Nigeria some of these issues. But my concern is, if Mrs. Jonathan is saying that this money was meant for her own medical treatment and that of her dead mother, and the money is still in her account since her mother died, and she has not gone for medical, how can she be claiming this money? Then people are suffering and she's keeping money for medical attention, such huge amount. I think people should be, I am praying that our justice system should deal properly with this matter.
Yeah.
And the others silent. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Sorry.
Yes, let me just, in addition to what my brother said, you see, the man that call was saying we don't need the courts to do anything. You see, that means we'll be doing things capriciously and whimsically. Because if there are procedures and steps already provided by law to determine the guilt or otherwise of any person.
Yes.
We cannot rush
But
the process.
understanding Mazi Okorafor's contribution, I think he was making the point, albeit in different words, that it's a black and white issue. It's a black and white issue.
He should be consoled. He
Yes,
should be
go
comforted.
to the place. Ask for the forms, opening the account.
No.
You see it. So stop.
No,
I understand.
I think all of those must. I mean, at the
All of
point,
those have been
at
done.
the point where the lawyer will tell you go and plead guilty, he's at his wit's end.
Yeah.
Exactly, because
Exactly.
lawyers don't want to do that.
So
most of the time.
which is why I thought that the EFCC deserved commendation on this particular one. I felt so.
Because that is to say,
Because it's about
because
the
it's
investigative
about- yes,
prowess.
When it is watertight,
Yes.
look, let me
What
tell
you
you,
can do
it's
about
easy. It's easier. I can tell you, as a practicing lawyer, that it is most often easier to defend a criminal offense than to prosecute it.
Exactly.
But at the point where you are confronted
Yes.
with the quality of evidence,
Watertight.
and
watertight,
you have
yes.
no other option other than to advise your client from whom you will make
Money.
fortune.
And then throw yourself on the mercy of the court.
They should be
You know,
commended.
that would be the sort of... Well, there's not so much we can say about this beyond what we have said, and quite frankly, we've run out of time as well. But, you know, just in the last few seconds, I just feel, as it were, this is a husband and wife matter. True, they're especially, these are very high personalities.
He had two
But-
opportunities.
but-
Let me take a bite at the
But,
cherry.
you know,
And that- and that's good.
I wanted to end on
Wonderful
the whole matter.
family. But
Yes.
I still maintain my perception, this is from a distance anyway, that this man labors to a gentleman, and most often he tries to carry every person along. But he labors to also distance himself from the transgressions of this woman. So, these transgressions are not.
Oh, you're advising, that is
not-
advice. You're
no,
advising
no.
that he should
I'm
labor.
No, I'm perceiving.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
always
that he has
seeing
been doing
from
that.
a distance that this is what he does.
Okay.
Mark you, when he decided to throw in the towel and concede to defeat, I can bet you that it was not a global discussion, particularly with patience.
Okay, we got to leave the matter there. Thank you very, very much, Malaki Ogumadu, National President, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, and Barrister Adetokunbo Mumuni, Executive Director of SERAP. Thank you, gentlemen, for giving us the benefit of your insights. And also, you actually managed to give us some free legal advice there. That was, even though the tiniest. Thank you very much, gentlemen. See you on Monday, God willing, with a fresh edition of the program. I'm Yori Flaren.